Welcome to episode 190 of Build Your House Yourself University by BYHYU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can build well-designed, quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. As I was going over the lighting plan for my new house, I wondered if there were different rules for lighting rooms with tall ceilings as opposed to rooms with standard 8-foot ceilings. Is it okay to use the same type and number of recessed lights throughout your house, no matter the room's function or ceiling height? And does a 2-story foyer or rooms with vaulted ceiling need special lighting considerations? One of the biggest problems with the house I currently live in is that the rooms are dark. The lighting is not bright enough and it's too yellow. In the house we're building, I want to make sure that we choose recessed lights and lighting fixtures that will adequately illuminate our home, which I'm finding becomes increasingly important as I get older. I don't want to have to pull out my iPhone light, like I do now, to tell the difference between navy blue and black pants, or to do certain tasks. I want to be able to turn on a room light and see everything I need to see. Worse than not installing enough canned lights or lighting fixtures is wasting money by having an appropriate number of fixtures, but fixtures that don't put out adequate light in specific situations, like rooms with tall ceilings. So I did some research about how to light tall ceilings, which many of us will have in our new builds. The information was harder to find than I anticipated, but after days of researching lighting design, electrician, lighting manufacturer, and retail lighting websites, I came up with a few tips for some basic guidelines for lighting rooms with ceilings greater than the standard 8 feet. Most of you are ready for the information in this episode because you reviewed the basic lighting principles and terminology in last week's episode called Lighting 101. You might also want to listen to episodes 125 and 125.5, where between the two episodes, you'll get 71 lighting and electrical plan tips that'll help you think through the best locations for lights, electrical outlets, and light switches. Before we move on to those tall ceiling lighting tips, I want to give a shout out to Raina Lale from Canada. Thank you for that 5-star rating and review that you wrote in iTunes. You're welcome, Raina, and thank you for listening on your commute to work. Okay, let's get into those tips. To be clear, you may be able to get away with using standard lighting recommendations if you're planning for 9 or even 10-foot ceilings. But the taller the ceilings and the more important having a well-lit house is to you, the more important it is to incorporate some of these tips for lighting rooms with tall ceilings. Number 1, use long-lasting LED bulbs or fixtures. The higher the ceiling, the more inconvenient and dangerous it is to change ceiling fixtures. Many LEDs allow for 50,000 hours of use. This is approximately 50 times longer than a typical incandescent bulb, 20 to 25 times longer than a typical halogen, and 8 to 10 times longer than a typical CFL or compact fluorescent lamp. Used even 12 hours a day, a 50,000-hour LED bulb will last more than 11 years. That long lifespan is exactly what we want if we have high ceilings with bulbs that are hard to get to. There are now even fixtures and recessed lights that are made with integrated LED light sources instead of removable bulbs. These are also long-lasting, but be warned that the entire fixture will need to be replaced once the LED light source has run its course. Number 2, choose recessed lights with a more narrow beam angle. A beam angle, also called a beam spread, indicates the angle or spread of light that extends across the floor when a ceiling light fixture is turned on. Most LED lights are available in a variety of beam angles. A wider beam angle gives less concentrated, softer light across a wider area of the room. A narrow beam angle gives more intense, concentrated light that can more easily reach the floor from a high ceiling. In rooms with tall ceilings, light from recessed cans with the typical beam spread is often too soft and diffuse to adequately illuminate the floor level. A more narrow beam angle of less than 50 degrees is recommended for ceilings higher than 9 feet. In addition, more recessed lights will be needed. For standard 8-foot ceiling heights, a wider beam angle spread of 60 degrees or more is recommended. The softer you want the light, the wider the beam angle should be. The more focused you want the light, the more narrow you want the beam angle. And since it's difficult to get light from a tall ceiling to the floor level, you need more concentrated focused light. Consider narrow beam angle recessed lights of about 30 degrees in rooms with tall ceilings that need more intense task lighting, like in the kitchen or bathroom. So remember, for tall ceilings, you want a beam angle of 50 degrees or less. Number 3, spread your light across the entire area of the room. Rooms with high ceilings especially need light that is spread evenly across the entire ceiling, so light spreads uniformly across the room. Start with a focal point lighting fixture, like a chandelier, and place recessed lights evenly around the focal point light. In rooms where you'll be using only recessed lights, space cans evenly around the room, typically every 4 to 6 feet apart. And don't forget to place recessed lights over areas where task lighting will be needed. Keep in mind, you'll want to have the task lighting source placed in front of you, not behind you, where your body will cast a shadow on your workspace. Number 4, don't place recessed lights too far away from the walls. In a room with high ceilings, it's important to illuminate the upper part of the walls so the room doesn't look cave-like and spooky. Place some of your recessed lights close enough to the walls so that the walls get a soft wash of light. Walls don't need to get abundant light unless you want to highlight an architectural or decorative feature, but placing a row of recessed lights about 2 to 3 feet from the wall is a good general rule of thumb. Number 5, choose recessed cans with reflective trim. The trim of a recessed light is the visible part of the fixture that surrounds the bulb. Different types of trim direct and intensify or soften the beam of light coming from the bulb. Reflector trim is the best choice for high ceilings and anywhere you want to intensify and maximize light, such as in kitchens. The highly polished, smooth interior surface of a reflector trim reflects and intensifies light. Reflector trim focuses and increases the amount of light and helps to make the beam angle more narrow, makes the light brighter, and that is what we need for high ceilings. Okay, pop quiz. Do you remember the most commonly used trim for recessed lights? It's not the reflector trim. We talked about it last week. It has a ribbed interior and is used in most homes to dim and soften light. Do you remember the name of that? It's a baffle trim. Baffle trim is the better choice for standard 8-foot ceilings, and it might work okay for 9 or 10-foot ceilings where dimmer light is needed, like in bedrooms. But wherever you have very tall ceilings, say 12 feet or more, and when lots of focused light is needed, like in the kitchen or bathroom, request reflector trim. Number 6, choose 6-inch recessed cans for the most options. Because they cover more area than 4-inch recessed lights, 6-inch cans work well in rooms with high ceilings. 6-inch cans are the most popular size of recessed lights on the market, and as a result, 6-inch recessed lights have more options for trim style and trim color. Plus, more beam angle options are available for 6-inch bulbs as compared to 4-inch bulbs. Higher-end homes, or those with a more contemporary style, sometimes use 4-inch cans, and that's fine, but realize that you'll have fewer trim and bulb options and that you'll need more of these smaller cans to illuminate a room with a high ceiling. Number 7, don't be afraid to go big. Rooms with high ceilings, and large rooms in general, often need larger lighting fixtures that can spread light over a larger area without leaving some sections of the room dark and spooky. If there's ever a place to put an oversized chandelier, or even 2, it's a room with a high ceiling. You can also install a cluster of pendant lights, as you would a single hanging chandelier. The higher the ceiling and the larger the room, the more oversized your lighting fixture can be. A quick rule of thumb for sizing a chandelier is to add the length and the width of a room together, then change the dimension to inches. That number is the minimal dimension needed for your chandelier. For example, if your living room is 20 by 15 feet, add 20 and 15 to get 35, then change feet to inches. That means a chandelier with a 35-inch diameter is the smallest you should choose. You can go larger, especially if you have high ceilings, but not smaller. Many designers say that one of the biggest mistakes they see with lighting is homeowners choosing fixtures that are too small. For vaulted or two-story ceilings, strongly consider a lighting fixture with some depth or multiple tiers to fill the vertical space. Number 8, hang a chandelier about a third of the way down from the ceiling. In a room with a 9-foot ceiling, the chandelier or pendant grouping would hang about 3 feet from the ceiling. If you have a 2-story room and want to make the room feel a bit cozier, you can hang the fixture a bit lower than a third of the way down to draw the eye lower and de-emphasize the vastness of the space. Number 9, don't use standard recessed lights for vaulted or slanted ceilings. In order to make sure that the light from the recessed cans is directed downward, choose cans specifically made for sloped ceilings. Number 10, apply the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds has you split the wall into 3 equal balanced parts, the top, the middle, and the bottom. These are your 3 different design levels. Furniture is at the bottom third of the room. Artwork and other wall hangings are in the middle, and the top third is often used for lighting. But lighting shouldn't only go in the upper third of the room, especially a room with a high ceiling. Putting lights in each third of a room makes a space with a tall ceiling feel fuller and less intimidating. Add table lamps to light the bottom third of the room. Taller floor lamps, wall sconces, and low-hanging pendants can go in the middle. The top third should have recessed cans, strip lighting for coves, flush mount fixtures, chandeliers, and/or pendants. Track lighting and wall sconces, depending on the direction of the light, can be used to illuminate the top, middle, or bottom third of the room. Number 11, include enough lumens for the space. Lumens are a measurement of light and sometimes referred to as brightness or light output. As a point of reference, a standard 100-watt old-school incandescent light bulb produces about 1,500 to 1,700 lumens. You want all your rooms to have enough lumens, but it's especially important for rooms with a tall ceiling. For adequate light, rooms with a tall ceiling will need more lumens than a comparable room with a standard 8-foot ceiling. Again, that's because it's difficult to get light coming from a tall ceiling to project to the floor where light is most needed. To determine the number of lumens needed for a room, take a room's square footage, which, as you know, is the length times the width. Then multiply the square footage by the brightness factor called foot candles. Different foot candles are needed in different rooms. Bathrooms, for example, need 80 foot candles per square foot. So a 10 by 10 foot bathroom, which is 100 square feet, will ideally have 8,000 lumens. A bedroom needs 20 foot candles per square foot. So a 100 square foot bedroom will need 2,000 lumens. That means all the lights in a room should add up to 2,000 lumens. Most lighting fixtures and light bulbs made by reputable manufacturers should list its number of lumens. I'll have a chart in the show notes that shows the recommended foot candles needed per square foot for specific rooms. For rooms with very tall ceilings or dark walls, you might want to add 10 to 20 more foot candles per square foot for each room. I know that was a little complicated, but just take a look at the chart in the show notes and it should make lots of sense. Our last tip, number 12, go for bright lights plus dimmers. You might have some hesitation about putting bright lights with narrow angle beams and reflective trim and lots of lumens in some of your rooms where you know you'll want to sometimes chill out and be surrounded by softer, more romantic light. And I get it, but designing your lighting to be bright when needed and adding dimmers can give you the best of both worlds. In rooms with ceilings higher than 10 feet, you'll definitely want to go brighter. Then use your dimmer for times when bright light isn't needed. Many electricians recommend putting a dimmer switch in every room of the house. Dimmers give you options. And choose a bulb with kelvins around 4,000 to give you neutral white light, which your eye will perceive as brighter. If you don't know what kelvins are, take a listen to last week's episode, Lighting 101. So start bright and dim down. You'll thank me for this advice when you turn 45. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the show so new episodes will automatically be added to your podcast library as soon as they become available. That way, you won't have to remember the name of the show or the day of release. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll come back next week for another episode of Build Your House Yourself University. BYHYU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.